Hey everybody, I hope you are doing well, and again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my whiskey wandering videos. This time, I'm all the way out in the desert in Palm Springs, California, visiting the Palm Desert Costco. Now, this Costco is a bit of a hit or miss as far as their whiskey goes, but this time I think I really lucked out. Now, before we get to it though, if you like these videos of me walking around doing some whiskey shopping at Costco, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can get updates when my newest videos get put up. So thanks again, and let's get down to it. So the Costco is pretty hit or miss when it comes to whiskey selection. I found Shibui 30 there once or twice, and then a lot of times I found nothing really at all. My feeling is that because there is a healthy mixture of demographics there, like income, race, age, and things like that, they tend to have more interesting whiskeys in the desert than some of the Los Angeles proper Costcos. But that being said, in the desert, when they do show up, when those good whiskeys are there, they likely get bought up really, really quick because there's only one Costco out there. So let's talk about the three whiskeys that really stuck out to me at this Costco on this trip. Now, the first whiskey I thought was interesting was this Glenfiddich 14 Bourbon Barrel Reserve. It jumped out to me because Glenfiddich is a super popular Scotch, especially at that 12-year-old age range. But this one is a bit older, and it's aged in ex-bourbon barrels and then finished off in virgin charred American oak barrels. So it does sound interesting. I also thought that just for these two aspects, at least, it warranted a closer look. The effect of this, according to the reviews, is that this sweetens up this Scotch and it gives it a mixed flavor profile of both Scotch as well as bourbon. The price at the moment is at $43.99 at Costco, with the high and the low price on the street at $68.49 and $49.99. So that puts the average price at $59.24. So if you buy it at Costco, you will get a savings of 25.74%. Now the alcohol by volume, that's the ABV, is set at 43%, which is a smidge low for my tasting, but not too bad. And the tasting notes from the review say that it has flavors of warm butter toffee, graham crackers, and a hint of cocoa, which is definitely a big departure from what you think about the traditional flavors from quote-unquote Scotch. Now the average reviews gave it an 87.5 points, so that's a solid B rating, not yet a B plus, I guess, but I guess hey, still better than what I ever got. And anyways, in conclusion, looking at this, I'm not sure really who it was meant for though, because if you're a Scotch drinker, you might be like, ew, you got some bourbon in my Scotch. And if you're a bourbon drinker, you may not get that full bourbon sweet syrupy goodness that you expect from bourbon. Now, of course, if you're like me and you're a both drinker, it may be an interesting bottle to have for your collection, but I don't really see it as a daily drinker, just kind of when you get bored of either or and you would like a bit of both. So I guess I will buy this one maybe later because there's still a lot of it on the shelf. It doesn't seem to be moving that fast, and it does kind of pique my interest, but I still think that I'm going to hold out, at least this month, my whiskey budget for something maybe more interesting. Now, the next whiskey that I did end up buying and that caught my eye is this Calumet 14. This one just has a boatload of curb appeal. I mean, just look at the bottle in the case. It feels super classy and high quality, not to mention the price is also on the higher side. Initially, looking at the amber, golden, sweet, saccharine, caramel color, it seemed to attract me to it like those hummingbirds flying around one of those hummingbird feeders. So I decided to reach out and to get some. Now the Calumet 14 is 14 years old, kind of obvious, and is distilled by Western Spirit Beverage Company, which was only launched back in 2008. So for all you mathletes out there, that means that the company is 14 years old, and this would be some of the first batches that the company ever made. The Calumet 14 is in the same family as Sam Houston, Lexington Bird Dog, and was produced in partnership with Bardstown's Bourbon. At Costco, the current price is at $98.99. Now, again, there's going to be some variation on this because that same day, I also happened to be in Laguna Niguel. I know it's a long drive, but the price was actually $10 less at $89.99. So I'm not sure what gives Palm Springs Costco, but either way, the visit, this one, it was $98.99. And with an in the wild price set at a high of $129.99 and a low at $109.99. So this makes the average price around $119.99. Now, if you get it at Costco, that means that you're going to save 17.5%. The ABV, or the alcohol by volume, on it is at 48.1%, which is in the healthy range for me. So it's not too alcohol-y forward on the flavor, but not too low that you don't feel it. And the tasting notes on the Calumet 14 are oaky notes over Cracker Jacks, molasses, and ripe plums. Furthermore, the reviews on it, although really there's not a lot, it did give it a score on average of 81. The review notes primarily focus on the price, not justifying the muted level of complexity. I guess at that $98 that makes sense, and saying that it is unbalanced and quote unquote nothing special. One of the issues could be, look at it like this. Look at the Glenfiddich 14, which we just talked about. It's 14 years old. It has the bourbon appeal, I suppose we can call it, but the price is basically half. So if you're going to spend the $98 on a bottle of bourbon, you want some complexity to that journey, and it doesn't have to be Ulysses, but it also doesn't have to be Little Bo Peep either. So in conclusion, I did end up buying 2 bottles of Calumet 14. I guess maybe I got suckered by the marketing and that classic Southern luxury vibe from the bottle, but we'll just have to try them here at some point eventually and see if they're actually worth the price, or maybe they're just hype. Okay, so the last whiskey that I want to talk about today from my Palm Springs trip is the Baker's 7 Kentucky Straight Bourbon. It caught my eye because, one, I have never seen it before at another Costco, which doesn't necessarily mean anything. It doesn't mean it's good or anything, but it just means I haven't seen it before. And two, I noticed that it does sort of look like the new version, the new age of whiskey-ness that's coming out. Baker's 7 is distilled by Jim Beam, and yes, it's that Jim Beam, and is produced by Beam Suntory. Maybe Suntory? Suntory. It's part of the Jim Beam small batch bourbon collection, and so that puts it in the same family as Basil Hayden, Knob Creek, and Booker's. And looking at the ABV on it, it is a bit high gravity. The cost on it, though, is at a very reasonable $45.99 at Costco. And if you were to get at your local shops, it could range anywhere from $119.99 on the high side down to $51.99 on the low side. So this puts the average street price at $85.99, which means you would save around 46.52% if you buy it from Costco. Now the ABV on it is in the upper echelons of the ABV for my collection, at least at 53.5% ABV. And the tasting notes make note of the heat and its aggressiveness, I guess no better way to put it. There are also flavors like beeswax, caramel, vanilla, cinnamon, peanut brittle, and pecan praline, which all sound pretty good. But it seems that the defining aspect of the Baker's 7 is going to be the heat. The reviews gave it a low B score at 82 points out of 100, but I think it's because the ABV and the alcohol burn, well, it not just separates the men from the boys, but it also separates those whiskey lovers who enjoy whiskey from those who enjoy the burn. So I can see how it's a love-hate type of whiskey, and it's the whiskey equivalent of those little Fireball red candies that some people love them for the spiciness, and while at the same time others really hate them because of the spiciness. It just maybe comes down to genetics or something. I don't really know what it would be. But in conclusion, though, after seeing the reviews, I am always firmly in the burn me class of drinkers, so I think I'll pick some up if I ever see this one out there again, and try to see if the heat is really all that it has been turned up to be. See what I did there? No, okay, it's kind of late. All right, so that's it for today's Whiskey Wandering at Costco in Palm Desert. Thank you all so much again for watching to the end, and I hope that you really enjoyed the video. And if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can get notified when my newest videos get put up. And also don't forget, if you see a whiskey that you love, just buy it. Because if you don't, somebody else surely will. It might even be me. So have a great rest of your day. I'm out, and adios.